Hey, everybody, welcome back to Covestic CMDB ITOM chat. As always, I'm your host, Scott Trumbull, head of our ITX, our ServiceNow ITX practice. Glad everybody could come back. Hope you've been getting some content out of the things before. We've been talking about all the new features that ServiceNow has added to help us manage and keep our CMDB healthy. We've just had some folks on, like we've had Alan and Austin and Ken on talking about these benefits we get to our processes when we have a mature CMDB. And so just a while back, some of our team members were at the Snug and we're talking with a group about how Covestic goes about working with customers, working with people to work out that CMDB strategy and plan a roadmap to take advantage of all these things. So, and it was really good information. So I invited them in. I invited Kate and Dondi. So Kate is one of our senior solution architects that works with our customers across the board of road mapping and coming up with all the exciting things, not just for ServiceNow platform, but for how their whole departments and how their ITSM and their business management process works, and help them do all those things. So she's kind of worked together and worked with a lot of people to plan, how do we get to where we want to be when we set that star? How do we get there? And then Dondi Beers, one of our solution consultants that helps work with our customers and align those things. So they were delivering that. I loved it. I asked them to come in here today to kind of talk about a little bit about that. How do we go about working with customers to figure out how to best utilize their CMDB, and how do we work about getting from where you might be right now, figure out where you want to be, and then come up with a plan to get there. So I hope I just discovered, just gave a preview of what they're going to talk about. So on that, I'm going to hand it over to Kate and Dondi, and welcome aboard. Welcome to the chat, and I will let you two run.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate the warm introduction that we've got there. One of the areas that we tend to look at a lot when we're talking about advisory and assessment work is the struggles that a company can have when they don't have an effective CMDB, and the types of challenges that arise. These are, quite frankly, intangible. They're things that an organization might face every single day. And so when you're running your business, when you're running your department, when you don't have an effective CMDB, that's going to introduce considerable risk. And so we see here that risk can apply to executive initiatives that you're trying to achieve. It can affect your business impacts that you want to be able to have. Again, those day-to-day operations, and even your culture that you have, trying to make sure that you've got resources that aren't getting frustrated or losing trust, or just running into those challenges. And so some of the things that we find, our Institute of Process Excellence told us that when people perform work from information that is not clear, concise, and valid, that organization can spend upwards of 40% of resource time on corrective action. And I think that we all know what corrective action means. That means rework, and nobody has time for that. So when we are looking at how can we, bring more success not only to your ServiceNow platform, but to your organization, this is a really crucial area that if we can get you out of the trenches, out of dealing with bad data, we're going to be able to position your organization to, launch initiatives successfully, to reduce negative business impacts, to improve those operations, and realistically improve your overall culture. So if any of these are elements or things that resonate with you, it might be time to consider looking at going through one of our areas of advisory services, which is our CMDB health check. And with that, Dondi, I think you want to take us through what types of things we might be able to offer in that space.
All right, that sounds good. Kate, I would like to just add a couple of things. Just in recent conversations with our customers, two big use cases keep popping up. One is around audits. So the customers are challenged if they don't have an effective CMDB with all the right assets, with the right relationships, and responding to audits. And what they're finding is they're spending a lot of just weeks at a time manually bringing things together to try to meet an audit. So another one is around a service desk agent getting a call or responding to a case or ticket, and they're unable to identify, what the impact is. So this is what we want to get into when we're talking about how to improve your CMDB. So we already talked about this, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So here's some of the key activities we do in the health check. We're really talking about more than just CMDB. We're talking about your configuration management process overall, because what we do is we're going to analyze your overall organization and how you manage your configuration process, and how you perform governance on it as well. So some of the things we're going to do is we're going to evaluate the data and your data structures, and look at how you ingest data into the CMDB, and we'll talk about best practices around that. And then we're going to align goals and outcomes with the enterprise plan. And one of the key things that we'll do is we'll be a bridge in your organization to build that stakeholder consensus, to make sure that everyone's on the same page as we go forward.
I think that's great. And so with those different activities that you mentioned, we get some really nice outcomes from that in what we consider to be our deliverables from this type of assessment work. So we'll typically have a readout that gets shared with executive leaders. We'll also be able to bring any of those results into putting forward a roadmap, again, to have that strategy for how are we going to go from point A to point B and what's our time frame to get there. And I do think, like you said, helping to build those bridges, the engagement model is very strong in that we conduct not only interviews, we also have the ability to send out surveys, to look at those survey results and really do collaborate, a lot of collaboration as we're putting that plan together. And so in those activities that we have, what you'll see is that we have a bit of what we would consider a typical timeline for our workshop agendas. So as you see here, we go through different phases of discovery, assessment, analysis, and ultimately putting those recommendations together. And I think one of the things that's really great about this is this doesn't require a long roadmap or a long ramp up. You'll see with our timeline that we have some initial preparation, a few days of really kicking off and getting through some basic discovery. We'll spend that time going into those different areas of your platform if you've already got them activated, or talking through how you could take advantage of those if you've not yet turned on those tools within your system. And we'll have a few checkpoints along the way, and then we'll take that information, spend some time putting together what types of opportunities might be there that you can take advantage of, making sure that you can really get good utility out of the contract that you do have, putting forward a roadmap that can help you identify where you might be able to turn up some parts of the application and actually get returns. When we're able to reduce some of these manual types of activities, that's going to open up more time with your resources to do more thoughtful, strategic activities within the organization. So sometimes these initial investments can get really good returns, and we're often wrapped up within about 4 weeks for this type of assessment work, the CMDB health check. Very similar to what we saw in that last slide, this takes and gives us a little bit of an overlap for those different phases that we had talked about with discovery, assessment, analysis, and recommendations, and where we see both the activities and the outcomes that come out of this. And so this just gives us more structure to that methodology that we use and how we come to putting together that report out of our recommendations. So I don't know from your perspective what you think is the most helpful within this body of work, but I know people get really excited when they start to see their needs taking shapes. What I think that really brings us to is we believe that our CMDB health check represents a formula for success. This is something that we've been able to do with a number of customers, and it really, again, begins with having an ongoing and perpetual view of what it means to align the real needs of your organization with real results that are going to be achievable when we put this plan into action. And so as we're going through and doing this, we see it as being able to provide you with a guide that's going to help in your overall transformation. It's going to help in putting together that program that you're going to be able to work within and adhere to as you go forward. And so what we'll often have is not only a roadmap phase and putting that foundation in place, but we go into a cycle of continuous improvement. And so we may have suggestions for iterations of projects that'll help you continue to execute both with purpose and with priority against the needs that you have. So as we're going through and working with your organization, we want to make sure that you're going to be able to both manage and alleviate any of those operational challenges that you had and walk away with real momentum to be able to move forward and continue to address any backlog that might surface in the future. So, you know, as it says on the screen, we do think the single most important choice that you can make to ensure the accuracy and reliability of your configuration management database and your ServiceNow instance is to really take care of and provide for the health of your CMDB.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And so speaking from my team, and so some of the folks on my team and with the customers we work with, because we're the ones that work with helping to deliver this, where we find customers coming in and we're, you know, I think that's the question everybody asks is, well, who needs this? Well, we find a lot of people doing it, and a lot of people for different reasons, right? So we have those customers who have maybe just implemented ServiceNow, and everybody goes in with that MVP to, you know, get it in place or get it off their other tool or get off their other tool and get it in. And okay, now we've reached that point. Now we know ServiceNow has all this stuff we could do. How do we get there from here? So that's where we kind of come in, and sometimes we even include this as part of our implementation project of coming up with, where's our plan? How do we get there? If we know within 2 years you want to automate server deployments, or what's your priority? Or your priority might be or one organization's priority might be those server deployments, another might be software asset management, and making sure we're working down in the path, right? For those new cases, and also helping customers that have maybe gotten a little stagnant on their program, where you've talked about kind of the execution roadmap. Sometimes it is just, okay, you know, we're going to bring in these devices, and now we're going to bring in these, and now we're going to extend discovery to these areas, or we're going to do our SaaS stuff, or some of them it might start with a remediation, right? Where we're going to go in and maybe clean up some things that have become dated, or maybe didn't necessarily meet the needs. So there's a lot of opportunities, and there's a real value in kind of for organizations with or without us to taking a step back, looking at, what do I want to accomplish with my CMDB? What's my goal? What am I getting to? You know, am I doing work just because somebody thought it would be cool to have this stuff in there, or is it contributing to my organization? Am I going to be able to better control my assets? Am I going to be able to shorten my SLAs? Am I going to be able to help my people work faster, better, harder, without working harder? All those things. Anyway, sorry, I get a little excited about this.
Scott, I think it's important to note, you know, from recent conversations with customers, that they're getting value out of understanding the best practices on how to ingest data into the CMDB, because often they're using a legacy method, and there's modern methods that make sure that there's no duplicates and your data is accurate. And then there's also recent, you know, solutions in ServiceNow that allow you to manage the lifecycle of your CIs in a much easier way, a UI-driven way that we've talked about in recent conversations. So those two things, I think, I see customers getting really excited about.
Yep. Oh, and if you're just joining, go back to up there, over there, and you know, I'm sure that there's a vlog over there about the CMDB workspace and CMDB 360 and using Integration Hub and Service Graph connectors, all those things Dondi just said. So that's fantastic, and I appreciate everybody. Appreciate you two coming on here today and spending some time with us to go over this. Appreciate everybody who's put their time into watching this. Some of those things Dondi just mentioned are out there in our other sections. Coming up, we're going to wrap up. We've got some of the team going to be doing some more technical deep dives into how to implement some of these things in future vlog sessions. So I ask everybody come back, join us again. We'll be back here, same ITOM time, same ITOM channel.
Thank you.
Thank you.